Circus of Monsters is back, and for the first time ever in Eugene, Oregon. And this time, for the first time ever, we are on an outdoor pavement track. The first time the drivers get to experience this. We've got returning favorites such as Nemesis and Dragon Slayer, but we got new trucks such as Strike Force Nemesis and Swede Revenge coming out in the solid axle class. So we're going to see who wins this week in Circus of Monsters. We start with qualifying for the solid axle class, and it's going to be Aiden Dahlman driving Swede Revenge, the debut in Circus of Monsters for Swede Revenge as he starts his qualifying run. We've got a new racing layout for these drivers, a double crossover, and Aiden demonstrating that well, getting some big air into a save. 13.50 for his first pass in the green lane as he goes to the orange lane now. All right, good hole shot out of the orange lane. Nice big air as he goes to do the double crossover around the pod, going back into his lane. A little bit of understeer there for Swede Revenge. 11.72 is the fastest time for Swede Revenge. All right, Marty Hansen in Torch. Here we go. Going for the first hit. Loss of momentum, trying to get it, and he goes upside down in the green lane. Let's see if he can keep the momentum going in the orange lane there. Torch going upside down again. Oh, man, these ramps might have been too steep for Torch. All right, next up, Michael Thomas, Nemesis Strike Force. Here we go. Let's see what he can do. All right, Strike Force going off, and he misses the ramp with both tires, and the truck goes upside down. A DNF on that pass. All right, out of the orange lane. Let's see what Strike Force can do. See if he can get a good hole shot. A little bit of a bump there, and it goes upside down again. 4 DNF passes in a row. Oh my goodness. All right, here we go. Reverse Randy driving Dragon Slayer. Let's see what he can do. Dragon Slayer coming out of the hole shot. A nice, good start. Going to do the crossover. A bit of understeer, running really, really wide. Dragon Slayer with a steering problem. And he gets a lane penalty DNF because he didn't cross back over into the other side. Dragon Slayer getting a good start. Goes upside down, but he saves it as he tries to do the crossover. But again, with the steering problems, Dragon Slayer cannot get the... Dragon Slayer's driver cannot get the truck to stay in its lane, and he gets a lane penalty. DNF again. 6 DNFs in a row. Can Michael Thomas break the streak in Nemesis? There we go. Getting a good jump over the ramp. That was the issue that some of the trucks were having. A nice clean turn in the crossover. That was the issue Dragon Slayer was having. As he has to back it up. Oh, man. And Nemesis just goes upside down again. 7 DNF passes in a row. Michael Thomas is the last truck with the last qualifying pass. Let's see what he can do. Nice hole shot. Good wheelie over the roller. Nice clean turn. Using the understeer to his advantage. Brake checking the truck. Has to kick it in reverse. And he gets a pass. 12.27. All right. Aiden Dahlman, your fastest qualifier in Swede Revenge. All right, we move on to the Monster Truck Best Trick competition for solid axles. Each driver has 2 attempts to wow all the judges, and they're going to get a score average out of 10. Swede Revenge kicks us off. We're going to see what Aiden's going to do. Aiden definitely liking technical moves, tries for a bicycle, and it gets about a truck laying down, but he does manage to save it, which is pretty good. Other bicycle attempts have been made before, and they just did not go the driver's way. We'll see what Aiden can do here. Around the corner here for the Swede Revenge. Looks like he's going to line it up for some big air attempts. Here we go. Looks like Aiden's going to go big. Making sure he's lined up, ready to go. And there we go. The biggest air we've seen, and a couple of slap wheelies as he launches the battery out of the truck. All right, there are the highlights. We saw the bicycle. We saw the big air and slap wheelies. The score is 6.33 for Aiden Dahlman. All right, Marty Hansen in Torch. Last event, we saw him land that wheelie attempt he's been trying, and he tries it again, but this time it's too much traction. The truck goes upside down. He's got one more attempt to go as he over the crushed cars, and he tries to stop the truck in a stoppie, and it just does not stick the landing. That first hit going upside down there for Torch, but a nice crush car hit backsiding it, and then hitting the brakes, and a little tumble in the stoppie. All right, Nemesis Strike Force, here we go. Let's see what he can do here. He's going to go back up the backside of the reverse ramp. Definitely trying for a reverse backflip there. Not a bad move. A good attempt for Nemesis Strike Force. He looks to be going at it again with another reverse backflip attempt on the backside. Let's see. There he goes. Successful reverse backflip into a wheelie, into a bicycle. A wild move for Nemesis Strike Force. The score's coming in right now. Nice. 7.33.
Wow, and a reverse backflip into a slap wheelie. Oh my goodness.
All right, here we go. Reverse Randy in Dragon Slayer. Did not get a qualifying pass time, is having some steering issues. You can even see that as he's driving it around. The steering issues are definitely plaguing him right now. But we'll see what he can do in the best trick competition. A nice into a slap wheelie, into a backflip, but doesn't quite save it.
All right, he's going for his second attempt.
Randy going at it again, trying to see if he can get some new moves there. A nice slap wheelie again, right across the floor. Nice tricks for Dragon Slayer. That first hit was definitely really fun. A nice smack into a backflip, and then a slap wheelie. 6.66 for Dragon Slayer. All right, Nemesis, Michael Thomas coming out to see if he can beat the score set by Nemesis Strike Force. Can Nemesis get a better score and go 2 for 2? Go 2 in a row. A little bit of a bicycle attempt, but it doesn't quite bite for Nemesis there. Not quite enough of a hit off the ground. But we'll see if he can get a really, really big move to save the momentum here. It looks like Nemesis is lining up for a big jump hit. And here he goes into a bit of a pogo, into a cartwheel, into a sidewall save, and reversing it out, throwing the body. Man, Nemesis definitely made up for that first hit. A nice tumble there, going for a cartwheel into a sidewall save, and then just flourishes by throwing off the body. The score to beat was a 6.83. It was a 5.5. Strike Force is your winner. All right, we move on to Solid Axle Racing. Here we go. The bracket out of 5 trucks built: Nemesis versus Torch, Strike Force versus Dragon Slayer, and Swede Revenge advancing with the bye run to fastest qualifier. We get to see which of these 5 competing trucks is going to be the fastest in the first round of racing. Here we go. Race 1 of round 1. Strike Force versus Dragon Slayer. Here we go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Nemesis Strike Force with the whole shot here as they do the crossover, and they go back over it again. Dragon Slayer goes upside down, but Nemesis has to back it up. Nemesis crosses the finish line first as Dragon Slayer gets a little bit stuck into a wild move off of the big jump, but it is Strike Force with the win. All right, Torch versus Nemesis. Here we go. Let's see if Torch can make it across that jump there. Nemesis with the whole shot, clearing the jump, nearly tips it on the landing. Torch appears to have gone upside down as Nemesis gets a clean pass over the finish line. All right, we finished round number 1. We move on to round number 2. Swede Revenge versus Nemesis, which advanced. Strike Force advanced to race Dragon Slayer, which was the fast loser since Torch DNF'd. All right, Strike Force versus Nemesis, or Nemesis versus Swede Revenge. Here we go. Equal hole shot. Nice big air for Nemesis as Swede Revenge goes upside down, but sticks the landing as Nemesis completes the crossover and gets across the finish line as Swede Revenge having some problems out there on the track, not quite able to keep the speed up as it crosses the finish line. Your race winner is Nemesis. All right, Dragon Slayer versus Strike Force. We're going to see who can win in this race. Here we go. Strike Force with the hole shot as he starts the crossover. Dragon Slayer having problems as Strike Force slows it down a little bit to complete the turn and manages to... Dragon Slayer smashes straight into the boundary, letting Strike Force have the win. All right, we're going to do the third place race. It's going to be Swede Revenge versus Dragon Slayer, and the finals will be Nemesis versus Strike Force. So, Nemesis versus Strike Force for the finals race. Here we go. Nemesis with the hole shot, and Strike Force goes upside down. Nemesis completes the crossover as Strike Force gets a little stuck. Nemesis nearly goes over on the finish, and Strike Force crosses the line. All right. Nemesis will be your fastest time of the day, 9.52, and your finals racing winner. All right, we move on to solid Axel freestyle.
All right, the first truck
here we go. Swede Revenge kicking us off.
Aiden
Dahlman starting it off with a backflip. Great momentum. Sending it off in the car stack there. Good speed around the track as he goes backside the crush cars. Manages to save it after going upside down. And he hits the backside of the pod. And it goes upside down. The first rollover. Swede Revenge! Into a backflip off of the backside of the racing lanes. That was nuts! As he kind of does a little tumble next to the pit wall. Whoa, that was a wild whip off of the jumps into a front flip that just crashed off of the big jump. Swede Revenge really keeping up the action, keeping up the momentum here as he goes to hit the other racing ramps. Big air into a consecutive tumble there. Swede Revenge has hit all the obstacles. He can just go for it while filling the time. Man, oh man, the momentum is strong here as Aiden Dahlman just is destroying every obstacle for the track. Maybe that's a strategy to keep up, to destroy all the obstacles for the other drivers. There's nothing for them to hit as Aiden Dahlman trying to fill the time as best he can, trying to use all of the floor, getting some big air for Swede Revenge. Saves it on that rollover, keeping the momentum going. It looks like the body's come loose. He just smacks it straight into the side of the big jump, and Swede Revenge goes upside down again and is unable to save it. Wow, the wow moments from the off, the backflip to Stardust, the tumbles, the big air, backsiding the saves, the backflip off the backside of the racing lanes. That was absolutely nuts. That whip into a cartwheel front flip, that front flip off of the racing jumps, that consecutive forward momentum somersault. Just wild momentum and moments from Swede Revenge here.
All right, Marty
and
Hansen,
he's setting the score to beat.
For the solid Axel class. Here we go.
All right, up next, Marty Hansen in Torch. There we go. A front flip tumble. He manages to save it. You guys don't see it, but he lost the front drive line in this hit. So he is currently only rear wheel drive in this moment. So Marty working with the best he's got. No four-wheel drive in this freestyle run. We saw that big slap wheelie. A nice pogo off the top, but you can see there only the back tires are turning. He only has front-wheel drive. So Marty readjusting, getting reset, getting cleared off the track here, getting the truck set up. Here we go. Marty rolling around, trying to see what hits are going to work. Remember, not all the obstacles are going to work for him now that he's only got two-wheel drive. especially with this truck. He goes big, and it goes upside down on the second hit. Now we've got one more rollover to go for Marty Hansen and Torch to fill the time. He's definitely going to have to think strategically. We know that not all the obstacles are going to play to his advantage here, but he definitely is enjoying this track. Some nice moves there, trying to be strategic about what he's going to hit, using all of the floor since he knows some of the obstacles are not going to work. A nice bounce off the crush cars there. A good hit for Torch as he keeps going back to that big center stack of ramps there. And he goes big off of the front giant jump, and the truck goes upside down. That first hit there, you guys couldn't see it, but the driveline fell out. But those hits kept on coming. The highlights kept on coming. A score of 25 for Torch. A good score and a good freestyle run, considering what broke on that truck. All right, Nemesis Strike Force, here we go. We're going to see if Strike Force on its debut can come out and get a win here. Lost skills and lost the freestyle, or lost the racing run.
Wow.
To Nemesis. Cool. So here we go. A big wild momentum hit. Some big air here for Strike Force as it goes upside down, but manages to save it. Keeps it going. He can keep on rolling here. Backsides the racing lane. Some good air. Here we go. So he's trying to hit every obstacle. Nice reverse moonwalk there for Nemesis Strike Force. Keeping the momentum up as he comes around the track trying to hit all the obstacles. Ooh, he gets a little stuck on the backside of the racing lanes there, but he turns it into a bicycle. A nice momentum save for Strike Force as he comes up here to hit the car ramps. Nice big air off of that. Nice big wheelie there for Strike Force as he hits the backflip ramp and manages to... Oh, does he save it? Does he save it? Still, he just manages to save it in the time. As it goes upside down again. Definitely a lot of power coming out of Strike Force here. All right, backsiding the ramp into a front flip, cartwheel into another save. That was nuts. Strike Force going for some big air. It cartwheels again into a save. What a wild move. Definitely keeping up the momentum. Definitely using all the track. Trying to get a wheelie into another save there. And another one. Trying to donut, but it just turns into a bicycle, into a rollover, and then back into another save for Strike Force there. All right, keeping the momentum going. Backside in the racing lamp. Some big air. The truck goes huge off the ground into a rollover save there for Strike Force as he gets tied up in the battery barrier and into the tarping as Michael Thomas is driving around with bits of battery from the track. Oh, man, as the time finally clocks in. All right, momentum, the score of a 34.5 for Strike Force. Definitely the new leader here in freestyle. The momentum, the saves, the wild moments there for Strike Force. Definitely keeping it going. Just some absolutely unforgettable saves and momentum. What a great run for Nemesis Strike Force here as we go back through all the highlights and all the wild moments. There's that big jump which sent him straight into the tarping there, and he just kept going like nothing was happening. That was a fantastic freestyle. Definitely one of the best freestyles we've seen from the solid Axel class. All right, here we go. Michael Thomas in Nemesis as we go into freestyle run here. And he just goes upside down right off the gate, but he saves it. Remember, no body here to destroy, no body here to save. So it's just all truck, all cage for Nemesis. So he's got nothing to lose, nothing to hold back as it just goes straight into the sky. That was the move Interstellar was trying to pull off earlier. All right. Nemesis getting some bigger even off of the racing ramps. Man, that was insane. Nemesis keeping the momentum up as he backflips off
was
the
the biggest
backside
error of the day.
of the racing jump. Wow, another wild save there into a slap wheelie for Nemesis. Absolutely insane as Nemesis keeps the momentum up, backsides the racing lane into a bit of a whip, manages to save it as he tries to line up for the car ramps. He's going to hit the car ramps and do another wild whip there into a bicycle, backsides the car stack, keeping the momentum up for Nemesis as it goes upside down, but he manages to
That's
get
your
it
save.
back,
That's your first
keeping
one.
the momentum up. It goes off the ramp again. Definitely the biggest air we've seen of the
That's your
day
second
for
one.
Nemesis. Here we go, hitting the rollers, definitely hitting all the obstacles, just shy of that backflip, but that's where he's going, and he does a double consecutive.
Nice.
Oh my goodness, that was nuts. Nemesis keeping the momentum up, trying to get that score away from... Whoa! Another backflip off of the backside of the big jump, and he does a front flip into a backflip? What? And then he saves it again. That was unreal. I've never seen anything like that. And the truck just goes tumbling through the air. Nemesis is just
was nuts.
absolutely on fire as it just flies through the air again. Oh my goodness. This has just got some unforgettable moves and momentum. Some big air into a engine. Does it again. He does it again. It
That's
goes
it.
forward roll into a backwards roll right as the
you go.
clock hits 0. Big air, big momentum, big hits. There's no way this score is below 34.5 for Nemesis. And there we go. It's a 35. There you go. Nemesis looks to be taking the lead with a 35. Only half a point better. I would have thought I scored a little bit higher, especially with those wild backflips and those wild whips and saves into slap wheelies. The technical driving on Showcase here was absolutely unreal. I'm just waiting to see that front flip into a back flip again. I want to see that flip again. Let's see if they get it back in the highlight rolls here. There's that double
That was a
consecutive
double
as you guys
backflip.
saw here. You guys saw the backflip again off the backside of the racing lane. Here it is. Front flip into a backflip,
Whoa!
right into a save. And
What
that
was
was
that?
just unreal. I've never seen anything like that in one of these competitions. And then
That
he
was
just
pure
keeps it going as he does it again. Another front flip, and then here he goes. Another front flip into a back roll. It just was an unreal freestyle there for Nemesis. Score of 35 is the score to beat as we move on to the last truck. It is Reverse Randy in Dragon Slayer. Here we go. In the hometown show for the driver, we're going to see if this truck can beat a score of 35. Dragon Slayer's been having some problems in racing and qualifying. Let's see if those problems don't plague it. Into a nice wheelie to start us off. A standing slap wheelie. That was a good hit as he goes for the car stack, but he just barely misses it and tries to save it, and he gets a pogo onto the crush cars. That was definitely a fun little save there for Dragon Slayer. All right, he goes big off of the car stack. Definitely some of the biggest air we've seen from Dragon Slayer tonight. Here we go as he's trying to hit all the obstacles, and he backsides the racing lane into a sidewall save. Tumbles over the boundary, but the truck lands on its tires. And he gets to keep going here as he gently makes his way back onto the track to hit some more obstacles, fill some more time. He lines up to try and hit the backside of the racing lanes again. I hope he making a different move. This is where I think he's having those steering problems. Wants to steer the truck one way, and he gets some big air there into a nice little save.
Back up,
We can
back up,
definitely
back
see
up.
the steering issues that are plaguing Dragon Slayer now. The truck is not going. Whoa! This is a wild moment right here. Sidewall save, and the tire's gone. And Dragon Slayer ends up in the wall upside down. Wow, these highlights are good. A standing wheelie right off the gate. Big air for Dragon Slayer. A nice backside. That sidewall save was wild there. Big air off of the jump. Nice little momentum. That wild skateboard wall ride there into a save, knocking the tire off, blowing it through the wall. The score of a 21. Your freestyle winner with a score of 35 is Michael Thomas in Nemesis. All right, join us next week as we go back to Sherwood, Oregon for Circus of Monsters.